Hi everyone, and welcome to Eric's Electronics Workbench. So today I have this Hewlett-Packard 59309A HPIB digital clock, and it's a fire hazard. So let's make it safe to use. So what exactly is the purpose of this clock? Well, back in 1974, HP adopted the name HPIB for the then new IEEE 488-1975 digital interface standard. Now, to allow instruments that did not have HPIB to operate on the new digital interface, a series of modules were made available, known as the 59300 and the 59400 series. So the 59309A clock is one of these modules. And it puts the date and time on the HPIB for timestamping, which is useful with data logging. Of course, now modern equipment has a built-in real-time clock that would do exactly what this module does. Now, eventually, HPIB became the currently used GPIB, or General Purpose Interface Bus, also called IEEE 488. Now, an interesting part of the 59309A's design is it does not contain a microprocessor. It does have RAM, ROM, and many types of digital logic ICs. All right, so on the front panel, there's an LED display for the date and time. Now this uses what's called a bubble LED display, so there's a little bubble or lens over each number because the numbers themselves are very small, but it gives a magnifying effect. They're quite easy to see, very crisp and clear. This type of display was popular in calculators and other devices years ago. And this door opens up, so I take this small screwdriver, there's a little notch in the corner right here. There it goes. So under this door are some switches and controls just for setting date and time and some other functions. So it's nice that you have that local control on this, but this can also be remotely controlled over the GPIB or HPIB interface bus, which of course is this connector, AC line switch, fuse for the AC line input, TO3 type device, probably a voltage regulator in the power supply, I would imagine, switches for setting the HPIB or GPIB address and some other functions. This BNC connector is a frequency standard input, so you can input several different frequencies. There's a switch inside to select which frequency you're going to use. Now there's also an internal oscillator, but again, you could use a more accurate or more stable external oscillator if you wanted. And this BNC connector is for an external power input, so that if the AC line fails, then you have the backup power. If it's on this power supply, I believe the display will continue to run. There's also a 9-volt battery that can be installed inside, and that'll keep the clock running, but you won't have a display if it's using that 9-volt battery. Alright, so I'll start removing some screws to get the top and bottom covers off. Alright, and just like that, we're in. So very nice layout inside, very clean. So the area of concern for this fire hazard is actually back here, so there's some more disassembly because I need to get this panel out, and the edges on these sides wrap around on the back right here, so the side panels aren't just going to move out, they're going to have to be removed, the screws have to come off, some more hardware down inside, so I'll continue removing those pieces, get these out of the way, and get this back panel removed. Before I do that, I'm noticing a capacitor down here. Let's test this electrolytic. That blue capacitor right down there. Grab my capacitor tester. So this is an in-circuit test. This does not test for leakage, but it'll do the ESR and the capacitance. So let's see how this looks here. Down there and over here. Perfect. So capacitance looks good. Let's see what the actual marked value is. ESR is quite low, 0.24 ohms. And this says that it is 1900 microfarad, 15 volt. So it looks reasonable, no problems there. All right, so more pieces removed, and now the HPIB clock is in quite a state of disassembly, but now I have access to the components I need to replace. And those components are underneath this fiber insulating material. Now this is the thickness of a heavy cardstock, but it's extremely stiff, so it'd be nice if I could just bend it up and out of the way to have access to those components. But unfortunately, if you try and bend this, it'll just snap and break at these folds that were done at the factory. Now one trick is that you can try and warm this a little bit, and that might help it bend slightly, but still there's a good chance it would just crack and break. Now this is riveted to this metal panel, and then the IEC connector is on the other side. Everything's sandwiched together with these rivets that go through. So you could drill out the rivets and then replace them with machine screws, but I don't think I need to mess with any of that because it looks like I have access from this side right here and also right in here. So I'll try and work in those areas, see if I can remove the components. And if that doesn't work, I think drilling out the rivets would be the next thing, but I should have access to the side. Right, so the components that are becoming a fire hazard are RIFA safety capacitors. So they're connected across the AC lines on the back of that IEC power connector, so AC hot to ground and neutral to ground. So I've removed the old capacitors, I've cleaned up the terminals, so I'm ready to install the new capacitors. Now, I was able to work in from the sides, so I didn't end up disturbing that insulator sheet. Now, the purpose of safety capacitors is to suppress noise and interference on the AC line. So that noise and interference might be going in or out of a piece of equipment, but those capacitors suppress that noise by shunting it to ground. So in this case, these are 2200 picofarad capacitors, and on the 60 Hertz or 50 Hertz AC line, those capacitors present a high impedance. But as you go up in frequency to RF type range of frequencies, then those capacitors look like a much lower impedance, and again, it just shunts the noise to ground. Now, they're called a safety capacitor because they're supposed to fail in a safe and controlled way, given that they're on the AC line. But RIFA capacitors are anything but safe. The problem is that the epoxy in the case is deteriorating and they're developing hairline cracks, and you can see that in the close-up photos. So every time you come across these RIFA capacitors, they have these hairline cracks. So if you're working on older pieces of equipment, always look for RIFA capacitors, and if you see them, they have to be replaced. So they might be working, but they're going to fail eventually, and you definitely don't want them to fail because they fail in a drastic way. So with those hairline cracks, moisture that's in the air, just the natural humidity, it works its way into the capacitor, and it deteriorates and degrades what's inside the capacitor, and they start to pass current. And when the current flows through the capacitor, they heat up. And when they heat up, of course, that just makes things worse. They deteriorate faster, and it becomes a runaway situation. And in no time at all, they'll explode. And when they explode, they really do so in a fantastic way. They let off a terrible smell, tremendous amount of smoke, and they can cause a lot of damage. You know, if they're on a circuit board, they'll melt the circuit board and the surrounding components. You definitely don't want that to happen. And in this case, as in many pieces of equipment, they're right across the AC line and there's no fuse protection. So you'd be relying on the circuit breaker or your fuse panel to trip, but in the meantime, these things are just cooking away in the instrument, causing all kinds of problems, definitely a fire hazard. So it's definitely something that you want to replace before any of those problems set in. So here's the two capacitors that I removed. This first one right there. And here's the other one. So I'll get these connected to the Sencore LC102. Let's take some measurements and see the condition that they're in. And then for the replacements, I'll be using, it's right here, you can see the label right there. So these are X1, Y2 class safety capacitors. So they meet or exceed the ratings of these old RIFAs. And they're, you know, same style, same size and everything. We'll test one of the new ones as well, just as a comparison. All right, so let me get this first one connected here. So I've already set up the Sencore LC102 so that it knows the value of the capacitor, and we'll do a leakage test. So it's going to apply 250 volts across the capacitor. I've already entered 2200 picofarad. I made the tolerance plus minus 20%. So that's probably what these old RIFAs were. Oops. Lead came off. Let's get this clipped on there. There we go. So I'll just hold that up there. I think that's in the shot. You can see that. And let's do capacitor value. So it's out of the range of plus minus 20%. Looks like it's gone up in value, and that could be an indication of some leakage because capacitors don't age and improve. So when the value goes up, that's an indication of a problem. Let's check the leakage. So again, this is putting 250 volts on this capacitor. So 0.35 microamps. It's normal to see an initial current, but a good capacitor, that should fall all the way down to 0, and it's not. So you might think, well, 0.26 microamps isn't all that much. Yeah, it says bad. But again, these capacitors would only get worse with time. And again, that's definitely an indication of some leakage. So they're already going downhill. Yeah, that's definitely no good. All right, so this one has seen better days. And let's try the other one. capacitor value. Yep, that one says bad as well. Looks like it's drifted up in value, but it's out of the 20% tolerance. You can see that plus minus 20% that I entered. And capacitor leakage. So again, normal to see initial surge, but yeah, that's not falling down either. Not going down to 0. Yep, it says bad. Not surprising. And in the close-up photos, you can see the cracks that have already developed in these, and that's just typical of these old RIFAs. These RIFA capacitors were used in so many different devices by many manufacturers over the years, so always be on the lookout for them. All right, here's a brand new one. This is the type that I'll be installing. So let's check out how this one performs. There we go. So capacitor value, perfect, so right within spec. And the leakage. Yeah, look at that, it says good already. 0.1, it started even lower, and yep, down to 0, perfect. So no problems whatsoever with this new capacitor, very good quality. Let's see if that falls down. Yeah, it's wanting to drop down. Yeah, you can see how low that's going. So perfect, no problems. Right, so the two new safety capacitors are installed, and the HPIB digital clock is back together except for the top and bottom covers. So let's try and power it up and see what happens. Now I know some viewers might be curious what's on these circuit boards, so I'll put a picture up of each of those boards, and you can just pause the video if you want to study them a little bit closer. So for this initial power up, I'm going to use my current limited isolation transformer and variac. That way if there's a serious problem, the incandescent lamp that's in series with the AC line will just glow very brightly. Right, so the variac is set to 120 volts. Here we go. Perfect. So it's drawing very little power. It's normal. This doesn't require that much. And the lamp is not glowing at all. So it looks good, and the display has a decimal point by each digit, so that's normal when it starts up. It just means that it has to be reset. So open this little door right here. So there's a reset button. Yep, and it does a display test. Perfect. So there's a button here that says set day. And yes, it increases the day, and then if it goes all the way around, it'll make the month go up. Right there it goes. And then the time, slow, yep, there it is, and fast, yep, it goes very quickly there. So you can only set the time forward, there's no way to go backwards. Now again, this can be remotely controlled over the GPIB or the HPIB bus, and you could set any value that you want at that point, but if you're using the buttons on the front, you can just increase forward but not backwards. And if I do a reset, yep, sets it back again. Perfect, so that looks great, it's working very well. So there's a 1 megahertz internal oscillator, it's a time base. So let's make sure that that's working correctly because that directly affects the accuracy of the clock. All right, so I have the HPIB digital clock connected to the HP5245L frequency counter. So the coax cable going into the frequency counter, it loops around, and it goes to test point number 4 on the oscillator board inside the clock. Now this top cover is just sitting on here loose, and the coax cable goes under the back corner. And I have that cover on the clock just to help the temperature stabilize around the oscillator, because if there's temperature changes, then the oscillator can drift a little bit. So the result looks very good. It's supposed to be 1 megahertz, and it's 999.9968 kilohertz, and of course 1000 kilohertz is the same as 1 megahertz. Now this 5245L frequency counter is known to be extremely accurate, and before I did this test setup with the clock, I connected this to my GPS disciplined oscillator, which is a 10 megahertz signal, and this was spot on 10 megahertz. So I'm happy with this result, but maybe I can nudge it around just a little bit closer. So I'll try that and see if I can improve this just a little bit more. The service manual says to have this powered on for at least an hour for it to stabilize, and it's been an hour and 40 minutes now. So it definitely looks like it's stabilized. So this isn't too far off, but maybe I can nudge it in just a touch closer. Right, so I nudged the trimmer capacitor around a little bit more that's on the oscillator board. It's extremely touchy, but now it's dialed in right at 1 megahertz, so I'm very happy with that result. So I think this clock will be very accurate. And of course, if you need even more accuracy than that internal oscillator, then you can use an external time-based input. But again, very happy with these results. Looks great. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the HP 59309A clock and making it safe to use again. And if you did, you can let me know by giving the video a thumbs up. So if you're enjoying the content on my channel and videos like this, please remember to subscribe. There are lots of projects lined up and you won't want to miss them. Also, as of making this video, the channel just went over 10,000 subscribers, and I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. It definitely helps the channel to grow. Alright, until next time, take care. Goodbye for now.